So good evening everybody and welcome to our fourth Pecha Kucha event in Dunfermline Fire Station Creative. My name is Michelle Sweeney. I'm the head of partnerships and service development with Fife Cultural Trust, and a key part of my remit is to support the development of creatives and the creative industries in Fife, of which Pecha Kucha is one such event. As such, I'm very delighted to be introducing this relatively new form of networking that seems to have taken off so well in Fife, and we hope you'll be inspired and encouraged by the lineup of presentations that we have here for you this evening. So, what is Pecha Kucha? Why Pecha Kucha? Pecha Kucha is a creative networking event run by creatives for creatives. Started off in Tokyo in Japan some years ago, and what is quite unique about Pecha Kucha is its format of 20 slides of 20 seconds. And it's this format which has led to its phenomenal international success, primarily in cities, of which of course Dunfermline is one. Yet we still had to make quite a case to Pecha Kucha to get a licence outside of a major city, but proof of the pudding is the number of people who are along supporting this type of creative networking here. There are now in Scotland already a number of creative hubs running very successful Pecha Kucha events, and all of them it has added greatly to creative networking, no matter where it is that they're run in Scotland. The creative economy, creative industries in Fife are thriving, and tonight we have a local Dunfermline talented artist, Alan Grieve, who is curating this event, and Alan has chosen a number of his favourite creative people to inspire you with their stories this evening. So without much further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Alan.
Thank you, Michelle. Evening. I'm going to read this straight off a sheet of paper. It's not really professional. Well, anyway, thank you. It's brilliant. Wednesday night, packed house, school night. That's pretty good start. Right, I'm going to start with a quote. I have to put my glasses on. All artists have beards, and skinny jeans, and brogues, and no socks, and angst, and are wild beasts involved in late-night drunken orgies in their studios. Then, blinking in the early morning light, they make great work as the alcoholic fog lifts. Then they repeat this until they kill themselves, and all of their work is worth a fortune. Thankfully, there'll be no such people talking tonight. And we've gathered a group of people, I hope, who have no beards. That was the main criteria for tonight. So the girls that are talking, thanks very much. Although I know you might have had a run-in with a tweezer and a rope hair on the chin every now and again. Or is that just my wife? Anyway, the speakers tonight, this isn't my serious bit. The speakers tonight represent a selection of local people who think in creative ways about not only art, but about travel, music, dancing, history and the environment. And to me, the people we've got tonight share a quiet resolve to connect and communicate with others. They're ordinary people, they have families, and dogs, sometimes 2 jobs. They don't do orgies, but are willing to make an exception tonight for anyone interested. Thanks to all of them for all the time and effort they've put in, and thanks for coming along. Thanks to everybody for coming. So I'll just introduce the first speaker, who is Colin Maxwell, an absolutely lovely guy, lovely individual. I'll read out what he's written about himself. I am an amazing dude who writes an independent comic publisher since 2013. We have so far specialised in Wallace, but are branching into crime fiction with our next story, The Big Comic Con, which is a story set in Dunfermline. So with that, I'll leave you with Colin and he'll give us his talk. Thank you, Colin.
I did have a beard up until yesterday. I actually shaved my beard off. So I'm Colin Maxwell. I'm a comic book writer, small independent publisher. I've only been doing this for a couple of years, and 5 years ago, I think if anybody had mentioned, comic books to me, I would have never realised or never thought that I'd be making things like this. I'll have these with me tonight, so if you want to come and have a look, pop down to the front and you can see my books. So my journey to becoming a comic book writer or publisher has been kind of strange, but I started off doing photography many years ago, and in the early days of the World Wide Web, I started posting some of my photographs online, and a lot of these were scenic pictures, and people were contacting me over the web and saying, what are these places? We're visiting Scotland, on our holidays. Where are these places? And it got me into looking into history, and through that I started working in a kind of web business, building websites for people. So a kind of convoluted way, but it was the thing that got me interested in history, which is a big factor in my comic books. I also did a bit of video production as well, and I fully intended to do an animated film about King Robert the Bruce when it was the 700th anniversary of Bannockburn a couple of years ago. But due to kind of spiralling costs and actor problems and all that kind of thing, I ended up doing a comic book instead. So that's really how I got into comic books. Just a bit of an aside, I also teach lots of online courses for the company called Adobe. Fortunately, they pay me lots of money, so it allows me to finance my other work. So I teach things like Photoshop and photography and graphics and things. But comic books, although it's a relatively new thing for me in terms of a business, my dad got me into comic books back in the 70s. He used to read these things. Interestingly enough, this story is Admiral Cochrane, who's from Couris. We lived in Couris. And I didn't know, I read this when I was a kid. So, historic sort of stories and things have been in comics for a long time. So this is my first book, King Robert the Bruce. It tells the story of Bannockburn. I didn't draw this one myself, I just researched the story and worked with a local artist called Michael Philp, who's from Kirkcaldy. Michael was going to university, and I'd known him for years, and he showed me his portfolio of work for going to university. And it was all this comic book stuff, and that just sparked the idea, let's ditch this film project and get into comic books. So I worked with him for 9 months on that comic book. And then the second book we did, well, in fact I did entirely by myself because Michael went away to university, was this one, which is about William Wallace, the Battle of Stirling Bridge. And I did that in collaboration with the Society of William Wallace. When I was doing that book, I was drawing this picture, which is Wallace's army marching towards Stirling, when this competition came up through Historic Scotland. They wanted people to submit pictures of kind of historical events and things. So I sent that in, and I won the competition. I couldn't believe it. It was quite nice. So I've had a lot of publicity through that. Earlier this year, we had Dunfermline's first Comic Con, a big comic event where lots of people turn up dressed as their favourite characters, buy comics, meet artists and people involved in the industry. And I drew this picture, Spider-Man swinging around the Abbey here in Dunfermline, and the guys at the comic book wanted to use that image in their promotional material. You probably recognise this place. So I did a whole bunch of other images like this, which were kind of landmarks in Dunfermline with comic book characters, and sometimes little jokes about the parking being free at Tesco's. Anybody parked here tonight because the parkie's out having a wee look. So I did a whole bunch of these types of images. Placing comic book characters in the location just to try and help promote the Comic Con event. And they sold out about 3 or 4 weeks before the event. 2,500 people came, and there's going to be another one in March next year. So Batman up on the city chambers, because it's kind of gothic. You recognise these people, So I was thinking about drawing some kind of big long queue of characters waiting to buy their tickets. And it immediately sprung to mind, there's a lot of Bruins, aren't there? There's an awful lot of them, so I thought that's what I'd do. I can change this now. It would now say, cuts hair, cuts more hair, does perms, because I think every second shop in that street is now sorry, I forgot about that. So Dunfermline Comic Con came and went. It was an incredibly busy place. First time I'd been to any of these sorts of events, and I've been to a few now, and it just attracts all manner of people. So there's people that do artwork, that write comic books, there's people who work in the industry. These are some drawings I did when I went to Glasgow Comic Con. So taking the same theme that I had with Dunfermline, was taking comic book characters and putting them in Glasgow locations. I sold out of this picture on my first day, and I phoned my son and I got him to email a copy of the picture to my phone, and I ran to Boots and got another set printed for the second day and sold out again. Incredible. And I've been experimenting with lots of different things, mashing up kind of different ideas, Minions and Star Wars and things. So as well as doing the comic books, I'm also doing artwork, and occasionally I take commissions as well. I never knew this sort of stuff existed until I started going to comic cons, and I get people coming up to me and saying, would you draw a picture of me as Iron Man, or as Superman in my pants, and things like that. So these are just a few of the commissions I've got at various events I've been to. This wee lad wanted to be Iron Man. A mum wanted her kids as Darth Vader and Leia from Star Wars, crazy stuff like that. As Alan mentioned, my latest comic book, I'm moving away from kind of the historic stuff just for a little while, and we've come up with this idea which is called the Big Comic Con, and it is set in Dunfermline in the next Comic Con next March. And it's a kind of crime story about some guys who dress up as their favourite characters and they go and steal some vintage comics that are worth millions of pounds from the event in Dunfermline. So being involved in comics takes me lots of places now. I've got lots of events coming up. I believe that On Fife are trying to arrange a Comic Con sometime in the summer, which I hope to be part of. I've got Dunfermline, I've got Inverness, we're talking about going to Belfast and scary places like that, really far afield, my goodness. So if anybody's interested in my work, come and speak to me at the break time. You can see my comic books, or you can see all this stuff online, Facebook and social media and all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin. That was brilliant. What a nice man. Next up is Fife's friendliest countryside ranger. It's Lynn Strachan. I'll read out what she wrote about herself. None of this is true. I have been working as a ranger in Fife for 20 years now. It's a job I really love. I work to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to experience Fife's great outdoors. I do this by careful management of countryside in and around towns in a manner which respects the balance between people and nature. So without further ado, a bit more about people and nature from lovely Lynn Strachan.
There's some really great green spaces around Dunfermline. In and around Dunfermline, you've got Callimure Woodland down in the Dulloch area. You've got Townhall Wood up at Townhall Country Park, and Townhall Country Park, of course, Pittencrieff Park, the Public Park, the Rex Park. You've got the Lindburn Corridor, and there's more than that, but I just made up that wee map, so that's what I had on it just now. But of course, in those green spaces, we like to visit, but there's also wildlife live there too. So I have lots of people tell me that they see wildlife around, especially deer, and the roe deer, they move from one space to another, and sometimes people tell me they've seen them in their back gardens and things like that, so they are here in Dunfermline. It's always a rare day when you see a bird of prey, and when you're in the public park or the town centre at the high street, if you hear a sort of meowing cry, look up and you might see a buzzard sort of swooping above you, circling above. Woodlands in and around town are absolutely brilliant for children, education, and people of all backgrounds. There's lots of schools visit the woodlands in and around Dunfermline, and the sort of kind of activities they take part in are things like forest schools, forest kindergarten. There's also, basically in the Ranger Service we try to fit into the curriculum for excellence and work with teachers. This is down at the public park in School Wood, and we try to make up diagrams and fit with the curriculum for excellence. I think that's probably the main thing. But the main thing is that the children actually love being out in the woodlands, and it's like a great space to be in, really, and it just opens up the imagination. Signs, waymarking, paths, that's all the things that we do in and around the town. And we kind of make these things to help people to find their way through woodlands and different green spaces, but also to create quieter areas for the wildlife as well. So it's all about kind of management and directing people in the places maybe you would like them to go. We couldn't do anything in the countryside and in the ranger service without volunteers. And these are people from Skye down at Petra Industrial Estate up in Town Hall Wood. And they'll come out for 1 day a year, a team of people, on a team building exercise. And some folk have never actually picked up a hammer before, and it's amazing what we can achieve. So we've managed to achieve this great boardwalk to a certain standard with good wood, and we've created a really nice boardwalk, and these people have had a great team building day as well. So it's a double-edged sword, so we like to work together. It's not all about working with people all the time. We do a lot of safety checks and things like that on paths and trees, and on the coastal path as well. There's a lot of coastal work. And we put a lot of things in place for ourselves when it comes to health and safety and through forestry works. But I've got my trusty wee dog there, Meg, who's a good companion and looks after me. In Town Hall Wood, there's some really great ponds. They're actually left over from the mining era. They're sort of sunken pits. And these are some people from the Fife Amphibian and Reptile Group. And every year they'll come across the Dunfermline and we pick an area to work in. So we're trying to do some good management on the ponds there, because in Town Hall Wood it's called a hibernaculum. It's a breeding ground for palmate newts, and there's literally thousands of newts up there in Town Hall Wood, and it's something you maybe don't see, but they are there. So they breed in Town Hall Wood, and they live in the ditches, the light damp ditches with all the brash on top, and that's their habitat. In Town Hall Wood, there's a really special little place called Town Hall Moor, and it's a wildlife site. For one thing, it has a designation. It's a wee area of heather moorland, and it's so special, and it's so small because in West Fife now it's quite rare to find heather moorland, and it's got some fabulous silver birch trees, Lady of the Woods. Nice place to visit. But the reason it's special and got a designation is because of that wee butterfly, a small pearl-bordered fritillary, and it visits Town Hall Moor, and it lays its eggs on the little violet. That's a wee violet, that. A dog violet is called. So it lays its eggs on the leaves, and the caterpillars munch away at that when they come through. We do actually work with, we apply for funding all the time for our work that we do, so we don't just spend the council budget or the trust budget. And this is actually all pictures from Schoolwood and Callymuirwood in Dunfermline, so we get to be quite arty when we get money. It's great. I'd like to take you on a wee guided walk, the things that the countryside ranger might talk about if you were out on a guided walk with us. Fly Garrick. It's like a great storybook toadstool, but it's hallucinogenic. If you ate it, it actually would cause kidney failure. But the Picts of Scotland used to take a wee bit of that before they went into battle, and it sent them berserk. Quite scary. You always get a wee bit of a laugh. You can see why, surely, in the countryside. This fungus, you don't see it very often, but it is there, and it's hiding in the ferns when you walk through places like Town Hall Wood. But if you smell a smell like maggots on rotten flesh, then it's a stinkhorn, because that's what it's called. Birds. There's lots of small birds around Dunfermline, and the diversity is quite amazing. And obviously you can't see them all because they're so small, but you can hear them. So you've got a great tit with the black cap and the white cheek. So if you hear teacher, 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 quite high-pitched, it's a great tit. And the one next to it's called a chiff-chaff. So if you hear chiff-chaff, 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 usually in woodlands it's a chiff-chaff, and it comes from Africa to Dunfermline. So it likes its holidays here. And of course you might know, and that's a robin. I'm sure you all knew that. I'm sure you knew that. If you go for a wee walk to the Rex Park or the public park, we're leaving long grass for wildflowers just now, and this wee plant's yarrow. It makes a great cup of tea, but best of all, cut the stem and you shall see the initials of your lover-to-be, for all with imagination. Basically, the countryside is everywhere. Dunfermline Town Centre, you'll find this beautiful little flower in the cracks of the pavement. And if you were around in World War I, you would give this flower to your loved ones and say, "Forget me not." Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Just one thing. I think Lynn does a brilliant buzzard impersonation. I don't know if she wants to do it. you want to do it? Come on, lad. Golden buzzer.
Oh, no, sorry, that wasn't right. It's something like that. I think it was better when I said, look up.
Thanks, Lynn, that was rubbish. Right, now, swiftly moving on. Next up is Colin Maxwell, another lovely individual who resides in Dunfermline, Headwell Road. I'll read out what's been said about him and what he said about himself. Colin is the creator of the website kinemagigs.com, which focuses on the changing faces of Dunfermline's famous Kinema Ballroom. And Colin became interested in local live music performance in the 70s while working on the road and photographing a high school band who toured the UK with the Skids. I think Colin's going to come up and elaborate a bit more about kinemagigs.com and the various other interests. So just like to welcome Colin Maxwell, please. Thank you.
My name's Colin Maxwell. I'm here to talk about the information held on my website, from the sublime to the ridiculous, from wildlife to a discotheque. So 78 years, the venue just across the road for those that don't know the venue. It's been there for 78 years and has had very many different faces in its existence. This is the rear of the building. Currently it's still there, still standing. It's just recently had a refurbishment. Built in 1938, and you can see just in the corner here the extension that was built on in 1964. Back then, obviously, it was the days of big band and swing and the like. Here's the original entranceway in Pilmuir Street. Now a roller shutter door. The entrance is still there, but not utilised. And just beyond there, I'll sort of take you on a short journey through the original entrance. Just inside this door that's the original box office. And that's still in existence, as it was last time I was in the building. From there, you then go up these steps, through this rather dark and dismal grey interior, up to the original dance floor, and from that view, from there you can see the original stage, as it was in 1938, right throughout the 40s, 50s, right up until 1964. That was the entire extent of the Kinema Ballroom as it was. On the left, you can now see the exterior as it appeared in, I think, the late 50s, come early 60s, before the new signage was erected at the top there, exhibiting the name Kinema Ballroom. It was known as the KB locally, and a few other things that I can't possibly mention here. Then in 1980 it was transformed into a European quality discotheque. It was absolutely top quality venue. I don't like Alan behind me, I don't know what's going on. So it was renamed then as Night Magic in 1980 and had a massive upgrade with a huge amount of lights, enormous amount of investment was put into the place. On the opening night, I was told that the tickets for the opening night changed hands outside for approximately 20 times their face value just to get in the door. Here you can see the various angles of the actual disco unit. The Bacchus disco unit is down the front there. And then it was transformed in 1988 to a new name. The interior didn't change a great deal, but the exterior changed with the new signage and the new name for Hollywood Boulevard. And during this time it won the, what was the newspaper then? I can't remember which newspaper it was, but the newspaper ran a competition and it won Scotland's finest discotheque in 1991. So it was Hollywood Boulevard configuration for 3.5 years. So you'll still recognise some of the lights from the Night Magic era, and the famous statue at the far end, which was for it was an interpretation of the Paramount Studios statue you can see better on the left there. And during the time it was in this incarnation with the name Hollywood Boulevard, we had, I think, 6 visits from a famous television show called The Hitman and Her, and you'll see Pete Waterman in the centre of the group on the right there, and some of the local staff. It was a television programme run, I think, about 11, 12 o'clock at night for about 2-3 hours. Dreadful programme. However, then a dark era, hence the grey background. It was unused for 7 years between 1991 and 1998, where it lay derelict, and the rain got in, and the vandals got in, and it was in a pretty poor state of repair for some considerable time. It was then taken up and reissued, revamped in 1998 as the Ballroom, with a delightful colour scheme. I'm thinking you should all agree, isn't it lovely? Isn't it really, really attractive? I don't know what the centre logo was about, but there you go. So it was purple and pink at that time. Thank God it didn't last very long. So it was called the Ballroom for 9 years, and then got this grey and black facelift for some time. It was relatively successful at this time, largely due to the extremely cheap alcohol that was on sale at the time. So for 9 years it was called the Ballroom. And there's the interior. Slightly changed, they downscaled a lot of the lighting. This is the new VIP bar at the right hand side. New video screens, a lot more, much smaller dance floor and more room to move around about the dance floor. It went underwent quite a change at that time. And then in 2007 it was completely revamped yet again with the ownership of Castle Leisure from Stirling. And it was called Velocity. I tried to get it renamed as the Kinema, but they wouldn't listen. So it became Velocity, and when live bands appeared, it was marketed under the name Kinema Live, which was a step in the right direction. And there's some interior pictures. This was the opening night, with the sort of wintry decoration. They spent quite a lot of time and money on the interior, and it became quite a modern stainless steel and chrome bright lights interior. And it was quite successful for some time. Unfortunately then, 2011 closed down again, December, and then in May 2012, or rather December of 2011, it was reopened for a short time. May 2012 closed down yet again, and unfortunately right now it's still closed. Anyone fancy running a discotheque? No? I get some troubles from people when I say discotheque. I think everybody here quite well acquainted with the term discotheque. So it's now to be a 200-seater restaurant, I believe. Very sad. A big awe. Yeah, okay. So here's some of the local and famous performers that have been there. You'll have trouble catching up with them. There's quite a lot there. This is really a very small selection. 1,100 different performers, artists, over 10,000 dates, over 78 years. It's an astonishing venue, it really is. It'll be terribly, terribly sad when they start serving food and there's no more bands, no more live music. However, that's the position we're in, unless someone here's got plenty of cash and wants to run a new venue. So there's some of the statistics. My website has now been archived in the UK Web Archive through the British Library, which I'm very proud of. And that's me. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Colin. Right, next up is the lovely Frank Connolly. I'm going to read a bit about Frank. Frank Connolly runs Dynamic Dunfermline, an organisation that promotes the history and heritage of Dunfermline. He is also a fundraiser and event organiser, having operated the Bruce Festival for many years, as well as a wide variety of other initiatives. Frank created the Old Dunfermline DVDs that have proven so popular, leading to a number of sell-out Old Dunfermline shows at the Carnegie Hall. So to talk a bit more about all his endeavours, Frank Connolly. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dunfermline Opera House, where it was, how long it operated for, and where it is today. So we start with a sketch from around 1900, and it actually opened for business in 1903. And as it says on the tin, initially it concentrated on operas. Here we see it towards the end of its life. You should recognise it from the sketch, and it opens out onto Carnegie Drive. You can see the stairs going in and out. And if you look at the west wall, you'll see a set of railings, because the building next door was used as a school. And certainly when I was there in the 50s, it was St Margaret's School, but it was also used as Cardmore School. If you come out of the school gates, you'll see the building on the right is Dobby's Saddlery. So to give you a perspective, that's still here today. And the building beside it was the Bath Tavern, and it's now Cody's Pub. And if we were to go on the top of this building, that we're in tonight, the fire station, you'll see what it looked like around 1970. So you'll see the pub on the corner, Dobbies, the space for the school, and then the Opera House sitting there. And what a great position it was in. You can see the upper railway station from the time when Dunfermline had 2 railway stations. So it brought people in from all areas around about. And here's an example of the type of entertainer that was in the Opera House. This is Will Fife. He's famous for writing the tune I Belong to Glasgow, although he came from Dundee. But it really moved on to become, it had all sorts of entertainers, but local as well. They had pantomimes, local theatre companies. And here was the most famous entertainer in the world at the time. It's Sir Harry Lauder, second from the left at the bottom. And he's visiting the silk mills, which were just outside here. And of course, it's really an early form of marketing, because there was thousands of people who lived and worked in the centre of Dunfermline. So a lot of these people would turn out to his shows and other shows later. Was it a success? I think this picture tells its own story. It's a matinee performance, and the people are mingling with the audience coming out at the evening. So hugely successful, but like many other things, there was new cinemas starting up, other attractions, and it finally closed its doors in 1955. James Mellon's son operated it for 20 years as workshops. If you look at the balcony, it will make sense later on when we see what happens to it later. So the insides of the theatre deteriorated. You'll see from the next one as well the sort of condition it was allowed to go into. So there's a box and the stage. And what happened was there was then proposals to demolish the Opera House, but there was a lot of opposition to this. And a lot of people wanted to see if it could be kept, if it could be incorporated into the new building. And there was a local actress, Dunfermline-based, Denise Coffey, who led the campaign. Obviously it wasn't ultimately unsuccessful, but what it did result in, there were conditions put on the developers that they had to save the insides of the building. So what they did was they purchased a seagoing container. This is the very final day. You can see this is before health and safety, somebody perched on the top and standing outside. It's more dramatic if you see the live footage. So although the exterior is demolished, the shipping container was purchased and all the individual pieces of plaster were gathered together and placed inside there. And here we have Professor James Dumbarton-Naismith. He was the head of the School of Architecture at Edinburgh College of Art, and he and his students conducted a photometric survey. So they recorded everything that was inside the building. So just in case it would ever be used in future, they would know where everything was. And the specialist company from Peebles, Grandison, were contracted to take down the interior, and this is John Grandison, and he coded all the different parts. He's actually explaining how he did it. So these were all carefully placed in the container, but nobody knew what it was going to be for. Until the Solar Theatre in Sarasota in Florida were expanding, and they were looking to find a British interior of a theatre. And they heard about a theatre in the box in Dunfermline, so they sent a representative over. She landed at the airport, was transported to the industrial estate where this container was, and she purchased it for $10,000. You can see the coding on this. This is John Grandison and Professor Dumbarton-Naismith, and they're overseeing its move to Florida. And as I say, the coding would tell them where it would be placed over there, and they actually went over to make sure it all went in the correct place. So here it is. It's now a 500-seat theatre in Sarasota. And remember I said about the balcony? So you can see it's all the original panels that were brought from Dunfermline, and it's very much a successful part of the cultural life in Sarasota today. The team of people, sorry, here you just see another view. The team of people, and they're the real experts on the Opera House, who filmed the interior. When they went over to see it in Sarasota, they described it as a genuine hairs in the back of your moment experience. For them it was like going back into the Opera House in Dunfermline. So they've gone really full circle. And we had 13 visitors from Sarasota earlier this summer, And I really liked the work of Danielle Stewart, who's one of the young artists based in the fire station. And here you see her standing with one of her pieces of art. So she's been invited over to Sarasota this summer to exhibit. Here's another one of her works of art. They're both over there on the wall. I strongly advise you to look. It's fantastic detail. So we're working with our colleagues in Sarasota to facilitate this exhibition. And knowing Danielle, I'm sure she'll visit the Opera House when she's across there. And it keeps the connection going because we're sister cities with Sarasota as a result of this project. And final slide, the team, they're actually here tonight from Talisman. They created an hour-long DVD which gives you more detail than I've been able to give you tonight. So they'd be more than happy to speak to you later on. I think they might have copies of the DVD up. And they're more than happy to take questions. So, thank you very much.
Right, that's the first 4 speakers on their bit. We're going to have a short break. I think it's about 15-20 minutes. Lynn, the Countryside Ranger, has fly agaric mushrooms. If anybody wants to take them, feel free. But we're just going to break for 15-20 minutes, then we'll get back to the last set of speakers. Thanks very much. Okay, ready to begin the second half of tonight's Pecha Kucha. Next up is Eileen Pickering. Eileen, I'm going to read a bit about Eileen that she wrote about herself. Fourth Pilgrim, exclamation mark, is a Dunfermline-based social enterprise promoting walking, education, history and drama. My story is about a journey I made to Lebanon to visit several Syrian refugee projects along with a friend who is a founder of a charity called For the Love of a Child. To tell me a bit more, that's Eileen Pickering's. Thank you, Eileen.
It's a bit hard to make this funny and entertaining, talking about Syrian refugees in Lebanon, so that's the happy bit over. The rest of it is really serious and simple. My friend Donna and I and my 16-year-old daughter who took the photographs went to Lebanon for a week in April to visit Syrian refugees because I'd been to Syria 20 years ago and I couldn't not go. That was why I went. So I first of all went to visit a school called King's Kids Education Centre run by an old friend of mine. An American guy had given my friend money to rent a building and hire 2 teachers. The rest of the volunteers weren't teachers. That's Jihad, unfortunate name. He was the head teacher, he was the fundraiser, he was the behaviour sorter out, he played with the kids at the break, he picked the kids up, 150 of them, to take them to the school, he cleaned up at night, he works really, really hard and does a great job. This is my friend Donna, invited to come because she's a drama therapist. She's the founder of a charity called For the Love of the Child, and you know, these guys have been victims of war for 5 years. And after getting safety out of the war at home, looking at the trauma of what they've seen, what they've been involved in, would be a next step. My 16-year-old daughter took the photographs. I was hoping she was here tonight, but I don't see her. And I actually just used the PowerPoint that she made up. I decided I wouldn't change it. And it was a fundraising PowerPoint, so I'm just using it, photographs she liked. And not fundraising tonight, I'm trying to connect that these people are ordinary, I'm ordinary, they're ordinary, and they're struggling. Absolutely packed minibus, getting the kids to come to school, they say 150. There are something like 4.5 million refugees in the neighbouring countries around Syria. 1.5 million are in Lebanon, and it's a wee country, it's smaller than Scotland. We had a bit of fun. We went into the school. My friend Donna's written a book called The Listening Stone. She told her story. It's part of her drama therapy package. We used puppets. They're Arabic speaking, of course, and so we had fun, but they are trying to help these kids access the education system. Because of, I guess, our interference and the French interference many, many years ago, these children can't access the Lebanese education system unless they speak French or English. So they're teaching them English, they are teaching them Arabic, they're teaching them numeracy, health and well-being. very limited resources, very difficult for them because the history in Lebanon, Lebanon is culturally a Christian country, Syria is culturally a Muslim country, Christian minority, and the Lebanese people don't really want to help the Syrian refugees, and so he has got moved time and time again from his school. This is a wee boy, very troubled wee boy, and my friend Donna, the drama therapist, hat on, she was trying to give tips and talk through a translator just to see if there was anything that she could do, that she could help in that instance, and we were really looking at how her charity could be involved later. Last minute, we got the chance to visit a refugee camp in the Bekaa Valley, and there's myself, my daughter, the opposite side there, Kim Edwards, an Australian lady who ran an education centre there, my friend Donna, and so we went for the day to this camp, and that's Syria, just over the mountains there. This is a 5-star camp, our contact Kim told us. You can see they've got satellite dishes. So there was electricity there. Some of the tarpaulin-sided tents were quite nice inside. Others, really, they had nothing. The road looks quite good, but a week previous to that, it had been really muddy and flooded. I like these photographs because they show, we've got a wee child here, bare feet, and some of the children looked good. I don't know how, they had, their water was in a tank, they had very basic cooking facilities, very basic toilet facilities, but some of them were really poor. This was a wee boy that my daughter just got in the corner, and we were actually talking to his big brother, who was 9, and his bigger brother has got leukemia, and his medical treatment costs thousands of US dollars a week, which they don't have, and our friend Kim had paid for some of that, but really there was no hope for somebody who doesn't just have the cold or a cut. This is quite a nice wee tent. You can see they've got the carpets, the tapestries on the wall. Everybody came to learn English. The grannies, the granddads, the kids, they all got together in their wee tent and were really desperate to get out of the situation that they're in. My friend Donna's hoping to use this as a logo, fundraising. She's decided, and the board of our charity, that they're going to set up a Sam's House, which is to provide play therapy for toddlers mainly, and also an opportunity for the mums to make some money, making little puppets. This is just some puppets we took along to interact with the children. In general, we were told don't give away stuff, but couldn't help it, so we did, and had lots of fun with that. So people are very entrepreneurial. They're trying to have businesses. It was a development camp. It wasn't a relief camp. So there was amazing stuff going on. Coca-Cola and furniture wheeling and dealing. They weren't given food. They were growing a lot of their own food. They were working for the local farmers, a very fertile area, really trying hard to get on in life. So that was us leaving that camp. We didn't go to any of the others for a long time, but we did see some run by the UN, which our friend didn't rate highly at all, said they were too big, they didn't give the people ownership, and there was a lot more sort of gang racketeering going on. I don't know that for sure, but that was what she said. I really wanted to personalise this, and these are real ordinary people being stuck in that situation in the camps for 5 years. They don't want to invade our countries, they want to get back to their country, which is why they've stayed fairly nearby, a lot of them, and they are trying to do their best, and I need to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the lovely Gail Nelson. Gail, I'll read a bit about her, she wrote about herself. Before that though, Gail actually lives in the big neoclassical building on the Mound? She lives in there. No, you don't, do you? No, she doesn't. She's an artist, she's based in North East Fife. Her work explores personal narratives, often with an emphasis on the passage of time. She produces artwork in a broad range of formats, including installation, drawing and film. Gail is an experienced curator and is the current president of the Society of Scottish Artists, as well as having developed 5 Cooper Arts Festivals since 2008. She's also a lecturer at Fife College. I'd just like to welcome Gail Nelson. Thank you, Gail.
He collects books of the same size as an exhibition about autism which has just opened at Fife Space Gallery in Glenrothes and can be seen there until the end of the year. The artworks in the exhibition are in a range of formats and were created by myself and another artist, Fiona MacDonald. The other artist and myself first met at a children's birthday party where neither of our sons were joining in. So we made a cake for the exhibition which shows the 2 boys standing alone. There were other children at the birthday party, but we couldn't fit them on the cake. The cake cannot be eaten, although when I saw it yesterday in the gallery, it looked as though someone had tried. The first artwork which we made together on the subject of autism, and specifically about our son's behaviours, was called the Triad of Impairments, and it was shown at the RSA in Edinburgh. The Triad of Impairments is a tool for diagnosing autism. Autism is a lifelong neurological condition. The criteria for a diagnosis of autism are based on impairments in social interaction, communication, and a lack of flexibility in thinking and behaviour. Are you thinking about your husband, wife, or partner now? How autistic do you think that you are? When a child is diagnosed using the criteria in the Triad of Impairments, the focus will often be on what they will not be able to do, on things that are not deemed to be normal. But who they are can often transcend this, and their relationship with others also. We made those drawings of the many idiosyncratic behaviours which make the boys who they are and how each one aligned with the Triad criteria, and we developed this into a wider exhibition. I'm now going to read a narrative about some of the symbols and drawings that we created about the boys, along with some views from the exhibition itself, which is in the Fife Space Gallery. The first symbol that I'm going to talk about is about a boy who collects small square books of the same size, which is the title of the exhibition. He collects small square books of the same size and mostly in sets of 4 or 5. The sets which he gets from the charity shops are usually missing 1 or 2. After a long search, he will find that one missing book stranded by itself on the shelf of another shop. Months later, he can still identify where he purchased every single book that he has. This same boy uses toys to cross boundaries. When he was small, he would work on emptying the ball pool in any soft play venue. He would throw his toys out of the front door of his house and into the garden beyond. And as an older child, he launched his toy aeroplanes high in the air, always to sail into the neighbour's garden and never his own. The other boy loves lemons. He sits at the table with a bowl of them, digging his nails into the hard outer flesh and gradually picking and peeling them, smelling the lemons and his fingers. He leaves them abandoned on the table, naked and soft, and his fingers leave traces of lemon on everything he touches. Both boys look for imperfections in their clothes. One looks for the tiniest holes to make larger, ripping the garment, a punishment for an imperfection. He hides these clothes at the back of his bed until eventually they are discovered, dusty and destroyed. This boy touches his heel at intervals when he walks. At other times he skips and sometimes he bounces. Subconsciously, with every few steps, one of his slender hands glides down to touch his heel. A family friend said they thought he had bugs on his ankles which he was brushing away. Sunday is an example of speech taken literally. Both boys are at odds with the world of spoken language, and Sunday is a day of sun. One boy has also decided that to say something is very tall means that it is not good. When told to put his iPad away, he will say crossly, "You are very tall." The food should not be touching. Waffles and eggs are well behaved, but baked beans mean danger. He scrapes the knife determinedly across his plate to stop a river of tomato sauce flowing dangerously from the pile of baked beans, and heading straight for the mashed potatoes. The other boy likes the feel of water on his hands. He holds them under the tap until the skin is red and chapped. He enjoys the feel of pouring water, of seeing it splash on the floor. He gets down on all fours and moves it across the floor in mini tidal waves. The other boy takes photographs of toy characters in outdoor environments. A Playmobil man waits patiently on the station platform for a train to appear. In other scenarios, the man is joined by friends or adversaries at different locations. The boy's ability to creatively represent scale and set up funny and touching scenes is second to none. There are feathers in the cushions. He runs the palm of his hand slowly and carefully over the fabric, pulling it taut. When his skin catches on the tiniest quill which has pierced through the fabric, he stops and plucks the feather from where it lay, nestled amongst its kind beneath the surface. Pouring things from bottles is fun. When one boy is around, all bottles need to be kept up high and out of reach. Any kind of liquid will do. The two mothers look on horrified as £8.50 worth of warm fuzziness soaks into the deck as he upends a bottle of cava. This boy needs to go outside to bounce on the grass. It does not matter if it's raining or cold. He feels the wet grass between his toes and likes the rain on his calves and arms. He wears shorts instead of trousers as often as he is allowed. The garden is still and quiet when he's out there, and his feet leave a trail of sudden footprints on the lawn. This boy films a football when he kicks it high in the air. It's filmed entirely in slow motion. It sails slowly upwards, the light bouncing off its surface, then slowly falls back to earth. It bounces with a mournful echo. My boy is 16 now and 6 foot tall. He comes to visit the exhibition. He looks briefly around and smiles, but the gallery floor is vast and shiny, the kind of floor you want to slide and roll around on. So he lies down on it and starts to spin around. He has none of our inhibitions, and this is much more fun than looking at art.
Okay, we're just about to introduce our last speaker, who is Dan Lyth. I'll say a little bit about Dan, he wrote about himself. Dan Lyth is a musician interested in taking traditional songwriting and placing it in detailed, textured and often complex arrangements. He has released several albums and EPs that have received critical acclaim from national press and radio. His most recent album was recorded entirely outdoors across 4 continents and over as many years. And one last thing, he has a really groovy studio in his back garden. I'll just hand you over to Dan Lyth.
Hi, my name is Dan Lyth. I am a musician, and for many years I had been recording music in the usual way, in studios and increasingly at home. The idea of the bedroom producer that had seemed so novel was now the norm, and I was one of them. But I was getting bored. And then one day I had the opportunity to visit my parents in Sierra Leone, and while I was there, a few different trains of thought started to converge. I'd always loved field recording, I was fed up of sterile production, and I wanted to spend more time in the fresh air. It clicked. I needed to record my next album entirely outdoors. So, what did I do? What anyone would do. Despite all those hits, it was surprisingly that not many folks try this kind of thing. And I realised that coming up with an idea like that in the tropics is one thing, and actually doing it in Scotland with its devious climate would be quite another. But I decided to give it a try. We started out slowly. The first trip was to record drums at St Bridget's Kirk, the ruined church near Dalgety Bay. No one got arrested. We had some nice conversations with dog walkers, and the drums actually sounded pretty great. So, encouraged we continue. It was a beautiful spring day recording vocals at Kuros Abbey, a session in Town Hill Woods, accompanied by deer just a few metres away, a trip to Queen Margaret Hospital car park to record Glockenspiel, and a quiet afternoon in a disused quarry near Aberdour. My friends and family got on board, so a barbecue at the beach with my dad and my brother and his kids turned into an opportunity to record some accordion. I started asking everyone I met where they recommended I record next. As we gained confidence, we started to go to more public locations. And it was fun. We found that people tended to be curious and interested. I suppose it's not every day that you see a double bass being recorded in Kelvin Grove Park, and the Japanese tourists who pass by certainly seem to be amused by it. Indeed, when we hiked up to a busy Carlton Hill in Edinburgh, the only thing that was unfriendly was the wind. It was so strong that we had to clothes peg the score sheets to the music stands. But the brass players didn't seem to mind and just happy to get stuck in. We found that people seemed to get into the spirit of it. And one standout example of this was when we went to Aberfeldy to do some recording. We spent 2 or 3 hours setting everything up, only for it then to promptly start raining. Undeterred, our hosts went and got their Land Rover, drove it into the garden, attached a massive sail from it to the house, and made a shelter for me and the rest of the band. I'll never forget it. Recording abroad was pretty memorable too. By this time my parents were in Uganda, and when my wife and I went to visit them, we made the most of the opportunity. We recorded some clapping on the equator, and along with a number of beautiful nature sounds that we'd later weave in between the music. Every holiday we went on, I'd bring the recording kit. So whether it was a bullfight in Spain, or call to prayer from a rooftop in Morocco, waves crashing on a beautiful Turkish beach, I'd probably be recording. I learned during this time that my wife is very gracious and patient. I also briefly went to Haiti shortly after the earthquake there to help my friend who runs a charity. On this occasion, recording was certainly not the first thing on my mind, but I'll never forget the sound of injured earthquake survivors singing together to lift their spirits. And then, before you know it, you're back in Dunfermline, hanging out at the public park, bringing a little bit of music back to the bandstand, or doing something similar at the Glen Pavilion stage, this time in pouring rain. Weather was pretty much a constant challenge, but there were plenty of others too. The sound of helicopters and sirens barged into my delicate bowed glockenspiel playing. Midges would eat me alive while I was trying to sing. Batteries failed. And then there was one rather large instrument that I avoided even thinking about for a long time. In the end, all it took was some friends and a bit of effort, and we managed to drag the piano out from our flat into the courtyard. It rained, of course, but at least the neighbours didn't seem to mind. So, eventually, after 4 years of recording, we were pretty much done, and it was time to start mixing. But there was one thing that was niggling. I knew there were elements of the songs that would need reverberation, reverb, echo. And should I use reverb from the computer and compromise my outdoor recording quest, or should I try and find somewhere in the wild that would suit? We'd come this far. It had to be done properly. But it turned out to be rather difficult to find a really great sounding cave or tunnel. I visited caves near Anstruther. My friends reported back on Smoo Cave up in the north. I scoured central Scotland for an appropriate sounding place. And to be honest, I started to give up. But then we found it. 600-metre long canal tunnel near Falkirk that sounded absolutely gorgeous. We went there in the dead of the night and spent several eerie hours playing sounds through that speaker and re-recording the sound of the tunnel reverb. And so, with the music finished, we just had to figure out how to present it. Unsatisfied with lifeless plastic CD cases, we decided to make a book. And and had photos and lyrics. My wife did some graphic design, and a friend of mine wrote a short story. It was pretty well received and had some nice reviews. And finally, we played some live shows, and it was a lot of fun. And the project was complete. Now, I don't know if I'll ever record an album outdoors again, and I'm certainly not sure I would recommend it. But the memories probably will stick with me for some time. Thank you very much.
Well, that's it, because we're one short tonight, so 7 speakers, I hope you'll agree that it's quite varied, a bit of fun, a bit of sadness. I'm getting the call to promote this DVD, CD. I'm going to do that. This is available for sale tonight, the Opera House DVD. Hour and a half long? Yes.
Just feels like it.
Just feels right. But it's available, £10, so that is available. And before I think I'll hand over to Michelle, I just want to say that, by way of thanks for myself to everybody for coming tonight. I get up each day and draw every day, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of drawings. They're in folders, I'll put them on that table. Everybody just take, you're welcome. Just please take what you want, don't feel bashful. If you don't like them, don't take them obviously. But thanks very much for everybody coming along tonight, and I'll pass you back over to Michelle. Thank you very much.
Thank Alan as well for having curated such a great event. I think I love the way Pecha Kucha in Fife is developing. It's full of a rich variety of different inspirational journeys and stories, and I think that's quite unique towards some of the other Pecha Kuchas. And I think that's the nature of Pecha Kucha, just sharing those stories, inspiring, connecting, and from the connecting, getting new ideas and new collaborations coming from them. I think that's what it's all about. So we're at the end of our first year of Pecha Kuchas already. It seems no time at all since Fire Station Creative opened its doors to first Pecha Kucha with us. It was a trial year for us. It really seems to be growing in Fife. We're very keen to see it continue. We are already planning for next year's events. The next Pecha Kucha is on Wednesday, the 22nd of February. We already have our first candidate, at least from tonight. Anybody who's interested, we've left flyers around with Gillian Parsons' contact details on it. So do come forward and let us know if you're interested. And that apart, there's just want to thank Fire Station Creative as well for being such a great part of this journey with us. And thank you everybody for coming along. Thank you.